been entranced or enchanted by some of the ghosts depicted in movies? Have you ever thought about how would I go about dressing a little ghostly? Or if you have always liked to dress like the spirit of something for Halloween, and you wanted to evoke that in an everyday life, how would you go about that in your daily wear or interpret it in your own personal style? In today's video, we are going to be talking about different inspirations that you can look to if you want to dress a little ghostly. Now, I am going to interpret this through the different 5 muses, but first and foremost, I want to address a question a lot of people did ask, which is, why isn't ghost or spirit or poltergeist one of the dark muses? And the reason why that is because I feel like when it comes to the idea of dressing like a ghost, it is actually really vague and can be done in so many different ways that I actually see dressing ghostly more so as an add-on to the 5 muses. I really wanted the 5 dark muses system to be a very simple base that you can use for your own personal style, and everything else that you want to add on to make it even more you is literally an add-on. My main goal when it came to curating the 5 dark muse system is to essentially put to words descriptive words that you don't necessarily want to continuously say, because when it comes to dark styles or dark aesthetics, there is this misinterpretation that it is one thing. It's dressing black and wearing gaudy makeup or whatever people stereotype a dark style or alternative style to be. And I wanted the dark muses to essentially be this source of inspiration if you want to dress dark, but you want to make it your own and kind of showcase that dark styles is very vast and is a very large umbrella. So how do you go about dressing ghostly in general? Now, when it comes to curating your own personal style, I find that it's actually really helpful to keep in mind what keywords do you want to evoke. I feel like that really helps with shopping so that you're not just mindlessly shopping for things, because obviously dress however you want, wear whatever you want, but sometimes that broad statement can oftentimes lead to overconsumption, just literally buying everything that pleases your eye. Just because something looks good to you doesn't mean you're going to realistically wear it every day. What are these ideals that we think of when it comes to dressing ghostly? When it comes to dressing ghostly like an apparition or a spirit, it is this ethereal being. It is also this idea of decay, this lack of life. It feels dark. There's something a bit off. But it is hauntingly beautiful. It is a whisper of the past. Out of all of the different dark styles you can aim for, it's probably going to feel light and airy. It's going to be like a horror movie heroine, and maybe evoke the idea of a folktale or a cautionary tale. Now, when it comes to dressing ghostly or interpreting this idea of dressing like a spirit or an apparition added into your style, I feel like color is actually important in a way, but more so picking a color. I find that, and this is just my opinion, you obviously can do whatever you want, but if you really are aiming for this idea of dressing ghostly like an apparition, I actually recommend picking a color and making it your entire look. Because if you think about the way ghosts are interpreted in cartoons, movies, or media in general, there is not a complex amount of color. Obviously, there are actual like ghosts and they can have different colors, but oftentimes you find out that they're ghosts later. Does that make sense? Because the idea that we're going for here is, I mean, if we want to be literal, anything can be a ghost or a spirit or this unknown entity. But if we're thinking about you really want to look like a ghost, then I recommend really going for a monotone look, like as if you are this apparition. I find that there are certain colors that evoke this the most obvious being white. Oftentimes, whenever people have reported to have seen a spirit, whether it was in their home or the cemetery, they are often depicted as these white figures. This symbolically can mean a lot of things. It can mean just literally the afterlife. It could be a depiction of the soul of the person. Oftentimes in media, such as books or movies or cartoons, White can also just indicate this idea of transparency, since that tends to be a key word when it comes to dressing ghostly. Black is also another way to go about a ghostly silhouette. I know white is probably going to be a more obvious choice, but black can still give off a ghostly appearance. Think how shadow figures are literally this epitome of something that still feels ghostly and haunting. But I feel like if you're going to wear black, don't do black and white. Don't do a contrast. Do all black to evoke this idea of a spirit. Red can also evoke that feeling as well. You still have to be a little careful because this idea of dressing ghostly is to look intangible. But sometimes red can evoke this ghostly look and feel. It symbolizes an angry spirit, a violent spirit, and also blood. Think the movie Crimson Peak or Junji Ito art. Blue is also an often commonly depicted color when it comes to ghosts. It symbolizes sadness, it symbolizes cold, it symbolizes death, a blue light, or the glow of a spirit, or just the idea of something that is dead. Think Corpse Bride. Phantasma from Scooby-Doo is depicted as a literal phantom girl, and she is all blue from head to toe with a bit of white in her hair. Green can also symbolize a ghostly look. I definitely think this is a bit more cartoony, a bit more kitsch if you want to go that route. Green is oftentimes depicting symbolizing ectoplasm or sometimes night vision, just like we see in Ghost Adventures or any ghost hunting TV shows. Green can also just symbolize this idea of uneasiness. It is a sickening color, and it oftentimes evokes this idea of someone was poisoned or there's this toxicity. Think Ghostbusters or Danny Phantom. And gray is also another obvious choice of color or lack of color. It evokes stagnant. It has this feeling of a lack of life, dust, and decay. Okay, so let me revisit this idea of when it comes to color, choosing fabrics and silhouettes, why the idea of choosing one color is going to be important to evoke this ghostly feel. Because when you have contrast or a lot of color, because a lot of color can create contrast versus this monotone look that evokes more of that spirit vibe. If you think about, let's say, the color red, how red can evoke a ghostly look and feel. The way red was used in the movie Us was very tangible. It was still uneasy and a really great horror movie, but it didn't evoke this feel of something ghostly or something of the afterlife. There was still something uneasy and unsettling about the movie Us, and I'm not going to spoil it, but the color red and its usage is still unsettling, but it doesn't give off a ghostly feel. Red is used in Crimson Peak. The way that it comes off ghostly is the red is depicted more flesh. It is a bit more transparent, a bit more sheer. There's tatteredness to where red is used. Again, I'm trying not to give any spoiler alerts. When using color, it can be done, but you just have to be mindful about how it's done. And again, when you have contrast, it starts to feel a bit more lifelike and a bit more tangible. So if you think about my outfit, I have this chiffon top, and you have a bit of this gray, and it was essentially a tie-dye effect, but it creates this ghostly, cloudy look. But because of the contrast of my red lipstick, it adds a bit dimension to it, and I feel like that is what prevents my entire ensemble from feeling ghostly, as well as other things, but that's just one example. What are some other ways to achieve this ghostly look? Like if you were to create a shopping list, or you're curating your wardrobe and you're like, what should I get, or what should I go for in my own wardrobe that will feel ghostly? So of the Dark Muses, and I will dive into this even more so in the video, I feel like ghosts, or the idea of a specter or apparition, at the end of the day is a mix of Siren and Haunted Doll. So Siren, you have these long monochromatic layers, and then you have Haunted Doll where you have this whisper of the past. So again, going for a one color from head to toe and going for this look of decay, tatteredness, and sheer, essentially mimicking the idea of that transparency that is often shown when depicting a ghost. So you can achieve that with chiffon, organza, or sheer layers. If you have an opaque ensemble and you put a sheer robe on top that flows in the wind, that can definitely feel a little ghostly. And I also think little details like mourning jewelry or things that feel like this depiction of death. Again, the key is to look intangible, low contrast, and create layers that fade into the background, just like a ghost would. When it comes to dressing as though you are of the vampire muse, but making it a little bit more ghostly, my mutual Nick Shea is actually a great example of that, where she tends to wear silhouettes that feel of another era. There's complex details in the garments that she chooses to wear, but there's still something kind of ghostly about her entire ensemble. And it could be something as simple as wearing it in all white. And it still feels as though it's a dark aesthetic, but there's still something so vampiric about it. A lot of my past inspirations for vampire in terms of the Dark Muses tend to be dark colors and bloody red hues, but there are still ways to make this feel ghostly even if you choose not to wear all white. Some of the ideals that I recommend upholding to make it still feel vampiric is luxuriousness. Think of the vampire as this old being that has collected riches over time. So think designer details, garments that have details that could not be mimicked with a machine or something that is unique. Think complex construction, such as what we see on the billowy sleeves in these garments or what Evergreen is wearing. But how to make it a little ghostly, if you don't want to go down the route of wearing these garments in all white, is think of red sheers and how the garment to the left definitely feels a little ghostly but still vampiric in a way. Long layers, this idea of this spirit flowing in the wind, and I feel like long layers is a great way to achieve that. And I feel like to make it a bit more like a ghost as opposed to just vampire is making the makeup feel a bit more dull and more dead. And again, going for that low contrast look. When it comes to dressing a bit more ghostly, but for the witch as your dark muse, it's actually going to be kind of inherent because the idea of dressing a little ghostly or like you are a spirit, that flowiness is going to be key because like when you walk, when you move, you're essentially mimicking the look of a spirit. And that tends to already be part of the key silhouettes when it comes to describing the dark muse, the witch. However, to make it a bit more ghostly and a little less just a witch, I recommend definitely dulling down the colors, but definitely upholding that idea of it feeling natural. I think this idea of non-synthetic fabrics is going to be key when it comes to upholding the dark muse witch, flowy silhouettes, and sheer monochromatic layers. So when it comes to some of the inspiration I've talked about for witch in the past, I've shown many different colors, rich saturated hues, but if you definitely want to make this feel like a spirit of the witch, as opposed to just the witch herself, definitely go for monochrome layers. And think of the earthly dead, thinking like buried alive, or this idea of this body that has risen from the earth, but not so much in a zombie way. I feel like that's going to give off a different look and feel, but this idea of things that like the earth has attached onto you or is still on you, and that can be shown in a way of like ropes as your belt or as like tied onto your shoes, like this idea of you have risen from the earth. When it comes to Siren, I feel like the ghostly look and feel again is going to be inherent, since the idea of a ghost is going to essentially uphold Siren aesthetics as well as a bit of haunted doll. But the reason why I think Siren is because at the end of the day, the Siren Dark Muse is long, sleek silhouettes, watery hues that tend to already feel a bit ghostly. And it is this subtly sultry look. Now that's what makes it a bit unique to Siren, where you are luring your prey to their death. But to make it even more ghostly, I actually recommend looking into open knit layers, or this idea of knitwear that has a lot of tatter and it elongates your silhouette even more. This idea of wet chiffon, so think of the top that I'm wearing where it has this tie-dye look, or go for pieces that have that water damage look, just as this bag does. Some denim tends to have that water damage look, or cold blue hues. So it's this mix of this oceanic look of the Siren, but also that phantasmic blue that I mentioned earlier. I know I said that ghostly is essentially this idea of mixing Siren and haunted doll. I actually think it's a bit more of a higher percentage of Siren with a bit of haunted doll, because when it comes to the haunted doll style that I have mentioned before in my base video of the haunted doll Dark Muse, it's quite tangible. Although there is something dark and unsettling about the haunted doll Muse, what makes it not very ghostly is that it is tangible. So I feel like when it comes to the haunted doll Muse, you can still make it feel ghostly, but I think in order to achieve that, you can make a bit small adjustments or a bit mindful decisions when curating your outfit. So for the haunted doll, as opposed to looking like the haunted doll itself, more so go for the soul of the haunted doll. To achieve this look, I still think you need to uphold those soft details, poofs and laces and ruffles. The way this is going to be a bit more different than Vampire as the Dark Muse is this is going to have this naive but unsettling look. It's softer colors, and at the end of the day, this style was meant to evoke this cute but creepy aesthetic. I feel like to make it more ghostly though, go lighter with the makeup, low contrast, and tattered and ripped up layers. Okay, so I feel like when it comes to the ghost look or the spirit look or apparition, fairy is probably going to be the one that feels a bit more challenging, but there's definitely ways to go about it. This jester-like spirit, if that makes sense, or this trickster of a spirit. So to achieve this fairy apparition, you still want to uphold those cheeky details, mixing and matching patterns, but I feel like to make it a bit more ghostly, maybe cut back on the colors, or go for more of that blue-green cartoon-like idea of what a caricature of a spirit could be. Or you can go lighter with the makeup. Again, make this feel a bit less contrasting so it has a bit more of this undead look. You can go for tattered garments and rips, but this still can play into the unexpected pairing and the fun layers that still feel very fairy. I mentioned this in a couple of the Muses, but the idea of adding on mourning jewelry or memento mori into your style and adding this ghostly look and feel to your style or any of the Dark Muses of your choice, I find that mourning jewelry is a fun and cheeky way to even add on to this and add that storytelling element that I mentioned. And also this is a way to make it a bit more personalized. Again, do your research though before going about this, but there are many modern day brands that can make mourning jewelry or memento mori personalized to you or something that can suit your certain style. I'm actually wearing a necklace from Petals and Poison from their mourning jewelry collection. It's their morning candle necklace, and I feel like Petals and Poison, I know I talk a lot about them, but I truly do love their vision and their aesthetic and how they actually do fit many of the different Dark Muses. They also have this mourning belt that has a rich history within Victorian era mourning accessories. I feel like mourning jewelry in itself needs a video, but I just want to quickly cover how different ideas of where you can get your own in terms of accessorizing to make your outfit a bit more ghostly. So Petals and Poison again has the belt, the necklace that I'm wearing. This is the mourning hand. And they also have the mourning candle ring, which is very similar to what I'm wearing, except in a ring form. And also a very popular way of showcasing mourning jewelry is the hair lockets. This is shown in Nosferatu or also different other horror media, but there is this amazing brand. So when I was looking into memento mori or mourning jewelry, I found this brand that I'm absolutely in love with called Mementos Entwined, and they do take commissions, but they also have antique jewelry with hair that they braid within them. But what I like about this brand is that of course they can customize it for you personally, And they also do not just hair, but also fur of pets that you may have lost, which is definitely something I'm personally considering. I feel like it's just a very beautiful way to honor those that are not in your life anymore. Another brand that does this, but in a bit more of a different aesthetic, I feel like Mementos Entwined does it more in an antique jewelry way. Alice Quapis, her account is Quap Quap Quap. She does not just hair, but she also does customized painted eyes of your loved ones, or she'll even take literal pieces that remind you of them. So there's this example she shows of this baby blanket, and it's just like a piece of it, and she's able to braid it in a way that you would with a hair locket. And I feel like, and she also does, she's also a licensed taxidermist, so she also does these encased lockets with not just hair, but you could also do maybe the nail of your pet or teeth, whatever it is. I know mourning jewelry can be kind of unsettling for some people, but I feel like there's a reason why it exists. It's a great way to honor those that we have lost. And also, you shouldn't judge how some people choose to grieve. It's different for everybody, and what is a form of closure for one person may not be the same for another. But definitely do your research, and I'm definitely considering doing a whole video talking about mourning jewelry and maybe the history of it. I don't consider my channel at all a history channel, but more so just like where to find inspiration for your personal style and how to make it more personal to you. Like, that's much more of my mission in terms of my channel. I hope you have a great week, and until next time, bye.